And there we go. I see him setting up. I know we'll be good now. I in my head I was thinking I'm taking a bit of a risk here, throwing to the goalie segment without having a clear connection to our goalie expert, Mike McKenna. But it is the blue paint. It is delivered by our friends over at DoorDash. Those promo codes at the bottom of your screen: DFODD, DFODD US. You know them, you love them. 25% off and no delivery fees on your first order. And Mike, there was a handful of transactions involving goalies yesterday. But let's start with the big one, and it's Marc-Andre Fleury going to the Minnesota Wild. What did you think of this move?
Well, I think it's a good fit, especially considering that the Minnesota Wild, in my eyes, have been a little bit leery of their goaltending all season. Cam Talbot and Capo Kakinen have both had long stretches that went very well for the Wild, but they'd also gone cold at times. And I think that there was maybe an internal feeling of, can we win with what we have? And with the cap space that we do have available, could we improve? And that's where Marc-Andre Fleury comes in. It's a quick flight from Chicago to Minneapolis. His family can come visit and be there often, which matters to him. I think it was a really short list of teams that Fleury would have taken a deal to, and Minnesota's a club that has strength. Look at the work that Chicago did here. Okay, they get Marc-Andre Fleury, the reigning Vezina winner, for virtually nothing from the Golden Knights. Mikhail Hakarinen's contract was voided. He goes to Chicago. He plays well for them. He's got 19 of their 22 wins on the season. And then the Blackhawks flip him for a conditional second round pick that could turn into a first if the Minnesota Wild go far into the playoffs. So good work by the Blackhawks. And for Marc-Andre, he gets to be reunited with Billy Guerin as the GM of the Wild. They played together, won a cup in Pittsburgh. So there's familiarity there. And I think this is a great fit. I love the combination of Fleury and Talbot, if necessary, in playoffs.
Just looking at what happened after that, and obviously Fleury goes to Mini, and then Mini's got too many goalies. And I was kind of thinking they might look to move Talbot just because, again, $3.5 million. We knew they were facing a cap crunch coming up. They opt to move Kakinen. They get Middleton back. But now out in San Jose, there's this weird kind of three-headed monster where they have James Reimer, Aiden Hill, and Kakinen all under team control for next season as well. Kakinen a pending RFA. Hill and Reimer both have contracts. What do you think happens here in San Jose, Mike?
Well, to me, I think Aiden Hill is the odd man out. And reason being is that James Reimer did have suitors at the trade deadline from what had been reported around the league. And the Sharks chose not to move him. He has a year left on his contract at a very reasonable cap hit. He also has a little bit of trade protection. He had a 5-team no trade clause that runs through next year. He's been really stable for the Sharks. And I think they value that. And he likes his fit there as well. He didn't sign a 2-year deal to get moved. So I think Reimer's in. I think Aiden Hill has been underperforming this season from what the Sharks expected. He was a bit of a hope coming over from the Arizona Coyotes, thinking he might be the goalie of the future in San Jose. And at $2.175 million, it's not a cheap ticket. He's got 1 year left on that deal. I don't know if his skating is up to NHL standards. And then you flip over to Kakinen, who's an RFA, but he has a ton of NHL experience compared to Hill, and he's played really well at times. Now, can you even that out for Kakinen? That's the question. So I think it's a little bit of an audition for the rest of the season with Kakinen. And then with Hill, I think it's not necessarily that different. So either Hill or Kakinen, one of those two is out of the mix for next year. I would put my money on a combination of Kakinen and Reimer in net for the Sharks.
Interesting, interesting. And Hill's a guy who's, got off to a start with Arizona. And you're right, it's just kind of an odd man out situation. There was also a couple of contract extensions given out on deadline day to a couple of goalies. And I want to start with Karel Vejmelka in Arizona, a guy who at the beginning of the year, I remember one of the first games he started, I made a joke. I was like, who is this guy? I've never even heard of him. Well, now he's got a 3-year deal, $2.75 million per to stay in Arizona. I look at this and I go, hey, Vejmelka's getting his money. The Coyotes are going to have some consistency between the pipes for once as well. What do you make of this extension?
Well, imagine coming from the Czech League, never having a minute of experience in North America, and suddenly getting paid almost 10 million bucks over the next 3 years. I mean, like, what a life for Vejmelka, but he's made his own luck here. He's come over, he's been very coachable, he's been studious, he's done all the things needed, worked hard to put himself in a good position. He's had some massive games this year. That 905 save percentage, take a look at the goals against. Okay, he's facing a lot of shots. That's what that means to me. Don't even look at the win-loss with this player. And I think, he's 25 years old. There's not much in the pipeline for the Coyotes when it comes to goaltending. They had Scott Wedgwood there this year, but Wedgwood's 29. So you look at Vejmelka as a quality ad that you've mined out with your own scouting staff that you could have for the next 3 years until he's 28 and hopefully see some even more growth in his game. So it's a smart contract from the Coyotes, and it looks like it's about the going rate now for somebody who's teetering on that edge of being a starter in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. I think this is you look at how much he's improved just in these few months since coming over to the Coyotes, and you think, man, a 3-year deal. Like, what could he be by the end of this contract? It could be a great value play by Arizona. The other deal given out was pretty much an identical deal given to Anton Forsberg by the Ottawa Senators. Two-part question here. What do you think of the Senators committing to Forsberg, and also heading into next training camp? Matt Murray's under contract. Forsberg's under contract. Philip Gustafson can't be sent to the minors without waivers first, and we know they value the youngster that they currently have playing in the American League. So what do you make of the Forsberg extension first, and then what do you think the Sens could do going forward?
Well, there's a lot going on in Ottawa, and I didn't really expect this. I didn't think Forsberg would end up going back to Ottawa purely because now there's almost $10 million tied up in goaltenders next season, as you said. I would imagine there's worry of losing Gustafson on waivers, but he also hasn't done great in the NHL. So maybe you run that risk if you're GM Pierre Dorion of sending Gustafson down next year. And who knows, even with Matt Murray, who's got 2 years remaining on his contract around $6 million, he may not play the rest of the season. So the Senators rewarded their best goaltender this year, which has been Anton Forsberg. He's outplayed Matt Murray by a mile. He's got a 918 save percentage on the year, and he's got a winning record on a bad team that's in the bottom 5 clubs in the NHL. I've been tooting his horn all season saying teams should make a move for this guy. It's a great deal for him. 3 years, 2.75 mil. It's the first time he's been over the $1 million mark, and it gives him some, gives him a foundation, gives him a place to play, gives him a place to call home. So I think for Forsberg, it's a great deal for him, but I'm really just surprised that the Senators didn't move him at the deadline for assets, because to me, if I were a team in need of goaltending, he would have been my target at an affordable rate at just $900,000 at a cap hit. But they didn't choose to move him. He had some leverage with the Senators where he was going to be a UFA this summer. So he could have easily told the Senators, hey, sign me to a contract now or I'm out of here this summer. I don't know if that's what took place, but that's what I would have said. So he gets a good deal out of it. I thought he'd either get 2 years at 3 mil or 3 mils at 2.5. Well, he got 3 years at 2.75. So good for Anton Forsberg.
And our producer Alex picked up on something very interesting. November 15th, he changed his mask. He went from the dark mask with the white cage to the lighter mask with the gold cage. And look at how the numbers have gotten better. Maybe a little bit of goaltending superstition there, Mike?
Maybe. And you know what? It's a great eye from Alex, our producer, finding that spot. It's amazing that I didn't, which actually makes me question my own ability as a goalie analyst. But I do think, though, that the cage on his mask is white on the inside, even though it's yellow on the outside. So visually, it looks different from the outside, but from the inside, he's still looking through the same type of bars. But great eye, Alex. I love it.
There you go. That's going to do it for another edition of The Blue Paint, brought to you by our friends at DoorDash. Once again, promo codes at the bottom of the screen. Type them in. They get you 25% off your first order and no delivery fees. Awesome stuff as always, Mike.